Hello and welcome to another edition of Another Book Review. This week I'll be reviewing China Mieville's novella, The Last Days of New Paris. I'll talk real briefly about the author, go into a spoiler-free overview of the plot, talk about what I liked about the book, what I didn't like about the book, who I'd recommend the book to, and finish off with what I will be reading for next time. China Mieville is a fairly well-known science fiction author. He's been writing, I'd say, for about 15 years. He's probably still best known for The City in the City, as well as Embassy Town. I know he's won awards for multiple of his stuff. He's also written young adult novels as well. He's oftentimes lumped into a genre called the New Weird. And this book definitely fits there. I think most of his stuff is usually filed under science fiction. Another one of his stuff that's pretty well known that unfortunately I haven't read yet is Perdido Street Station. But this book, The Last Days of New Paris, is essentially a alternative history of Nazi-occupied France. What has happened is that what they call in the book an S-bomb has exploded in Paris, and basically surrealist works, sculptures, lines from poetry, artwork has kind of come alive in the city and has kind of transformed Paris. And it's basically in the middle of, this is all happening in the middle of the Parisian resistance to the Nazi occupation. And so you have kind of multiple sides in this battle of these manifestations who are kind of not sentient, but they do move around and amble and have all kinds of strange abilities in this world. And the book has kind of an A story and a B story. The A story follows a Parisian freedom fighter who I'm going to describe as Thibaut, I believe is the pronunciation. But his story is the main story, and his story is basically in his resistance, he is able to meets up with a mysterious reporter. He believes she's a reporter. She has a camera and is taking photos of everything that's going around. She's trying to catalog the various manifestations that they're called manifs in this book of these kind of strange creatures that all come from kind of surrealist artwork that was made mostly between the two wars, mostly in Paris, but a little bit in other countries as well, that have all kind of manifested themselves due to this S-bomb. And he basically, he meets up with her, and he basically uncovers a plot. I want to remain spoiler free, so I don't want to go into too many details. But he kind of uncovers a quote unquote secret weapon of the Nazis, and the story really follows what happens at that point. The B story is really the story of how this all came to be. So kind of the creation of the S-bomb, how that came to pass, what that entails. So I think for the things that I like, I definitely thought that it was a very imaginative idea and premise for a story. I thought that the book is very fast-paced and fun, and I don't think it takes itself too seriously, which is good. And I think that it kind of is the perfect length for something like this. He has an idea that I think is a little bit more powerful than a short story, but it's not a full-blown novel, and I think kind of the novella form really fits this particularly well. I also think that he does a nice thing at the end where he has a kind of 20-page note section or so where he kind of talks about real-world inspirations for some of the manifestations he describes, some of the kind of light artwork come to life that he describes in the book. He talks about in a note section at the end kind of where who some of those artists were and what the inspiration was for what he used in the book. I think on the downside, while I enjoyed kind of the idea, and I think that the book is pretty fast-paced, it is pretty light and fluffy, and I think that the B story, while I think it is competently told, I don't think it necessarily adds all that much to the book. I mean, as far as lengthwise, it's very much in the background and kind of just gives you details, some of which I think he kind of does a better job kind of in writing in the main A story, but he does have a full B story if you want to understand kind of the creation of this S-bomb and kind of the purposes of it and things like that. There are times where I thought that the plot was a little confusing. There's a little bit of twisty and turny in this book, and there's maybe one too many ideas is how I would describe it without spoiling it. I think that he has kind of this idea of an alternative history, this idea of the manifestation, and there's a couple of other ideas that were maybe one too many. I think there are actually, for a novella, he does pack quite a bunch in there, and I think beyond kind of the drivers of the plot, there's just little things like the idea of people sneaking into France to try to sneak out some of these artifacts that are created, basically these kind of real life manifestations. I thought was kind of an interesting idea. So for one of the things he mentions, just as an example, is there is a what they call a wolf table, which is based on a real artist's work, but it's basically a sentient table that has half wolf, half table, if you can imagine that, and it kind of attacks the main characters. So the idea that people would come in from the outside to kind of take out these artifacts, it's not really a main part of the plot, but I thought it was a nice, interesting touch. That was fun. So that's kind of it. I think anytime you're dealing with any kind of surrealist fiction, you do get into the issue of how do you define the world and kind of the hard rules of the world. And in this, because it's surrealist, there are no real hard rules, and so that kind of makes things a little bit difficult to really understand the stakes of and really care about all the characters. But I thought this was a fun, quick read. If you're a fan of China Mieville, I would definitely check it out. It also reminded me of The Gone Away World by, I think his name is Nick Harkaway. I may be misremembering his last name, but The Gone Away World had kind of similar touches in that. And so if you're a fan of that book, I would maybe check this out. Like I said, it's a quick read. It's pretty fun. The Last Days of New Paris by China Mieville. And next time I'll be reading The Little Friend by Donna Tartt. Until next time, please feel free to like the video, subscribe to the channel. I'll have my Twitter link in the comment section below. Until next time, bye.